There's a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that goes like this. The Baal Shem Tov said, for every question, I have an answer. And for every answer, I have a question. What does he mean? What's the profundity in what he's saying? In general, all teachings of the Baal Shem Tov have a tremendous depth to them. They're not just random. They're not just cute little ideas. They're unusually profound. And I want to explore what he means by that. So here's a possible understanding of this teaching. When he says, for every question, I have an answer. Most human beings arise in a context or in a level of consciousness in which a question is experienced as some kind of a problem. A question is the absence of information or the lack of knowledge. And in a world in which people think of knowledge as power, if I'm lacking the knowledge or missing the information, I'm not safe. I'm insecure. I am that much less in control, or at least it feels that way. It's almost as if oftentimes we relate to questions or not knowing or the absence or the lack of information almost as if it's a hole in our boat. And the hole has got to get stuffed up fast to protect us from drowning. And so when the Baal Shem Tov says, for every question, I have an answer, he's kind of saying that's one level at which we experience life. It's a level in which a question is a problem and an answer is the solution. A question is a deficiency, a lack, or an absence, and the answer fills in that lack, supplements, and creates closure and completion. But then he says, and for every answer, I have a question. And possibly what that means is the whole experience of the question as a problem and the knowledge, the information, or the answer as the solution kind of relates to that sense of dis-ease that we get from feeling out of control and the information and the answers and the knowledge restoring that sense of control. Now, when we are inside of an identity that has this need for an illusion or an experience of control, and that's the currency that we're dealing in, and that's how we gauge, what's good and what's bad, the question being bad, an answer being good, etc. It places a great constriction and a great limitation on what is possible for us to experience, perceive, and have our lives actually manifest. Because it's like, okay, now I know. So so it gives you a sense of control, it gives you your sense of safety, but anything that you don't know, and certainly stuff that you don't know, is off limits for you. It's just out of view, it's off limits. It's completely outside of what you'll ever get to experience. In other words, yeah, exactly, Moshe, exactly. A diagnosis has exactly these two sides, right? I'm borderline personality disorder. I'm obsessive compulsive disorder. Diagnoses from the DSM or the psychotherapeutic world have that advantage. They give people a sense of closure. They give people a sense of control. Now I know. People like, my whole life I didn't know. Now I know. Now I have a name for it, right? It creates a certain sense of safety. It gives a certain sense of control. And there's a shadow side to it. Shadow side to it is that a person now kind of concludes their identity around the diagnosis very often, right? And it's hard for them to think of, well, what's beyond this? What's possible, right? Is this the full extent of the truth? Have I arrived? It becomes harder and harder for us to go to places that are beyond those identities, those diagnoses, those answers that we have that give us that sense of safety, that give us that sense of control, that give us that sense of inner equilibrium, homeostasis, balance, security. But if we think about what's possible, if we think about divinity, if we think about vitality, if we think about consciousness, there's a sense, an awesome sense, that it's endless and limitless. And so if we want to make progress and move deeper into the what's possible, if we want to make progress and move deeper into the impossible, right, the so-called impossible, then we have to somehow pierce a hole in our current identity, which, even though it gives us our current sense of safety and control, but also serves as our prison house. So we got to pierce some kind of hole in that wall for us to be able to peek through it to an expanse and a horizon that's beyond it and outside of it. So on this level, an answer is a problem because of the way it limits me, because of the way it becomes the edge of my world. Everything that I know, everything that I think that I know, becomes the edge of my world. It becomes the edge of my universe. Though the more I know, the more I could expand my universe. And it's still, what I know still is always going to be the perimeter of my universe. And a question which can poke some kind of hole in that actually becomes a breaking open opportunity. It's like it's breaking into the wall, breaking open a hole, a window, a door, for me to peek my head out and see something, whoa, a new possibility.